Do you know how many coaches have won 20 games in the history of the ACC?
The history, it's a pretty good conference.
ACC in their debut season.
I'll say it's happened a handful of times.
Give me a number.
4.
4 is correct.
Lucky guess.
Do you know how many of them were at one of the Blue Bloods? In 3 of those 4 debut coaches were at North Carolina.
Is that right?
So that shows you how hard it is to win 20 games in your first year as a head coach.
There you go. That is a really good nugget, Paulie.
Thank you.
As we are joined by Jim Satalin now. Coach, always great to talk to you. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. I'm in the mall walking, so I'll be walking and talking.
All right.
Actually, you guys needed somebody to fill in the spot. Who bailed on you? Come on.
Nobody.
Somebody bailed, and that's why you called me 10 minutes before.
Coach, I would never do that.
Be honest, Paul. He can tell you tonight how things played out, but we appreciate you jumping in on such short notice. I want to start with defense because I think that is the most head-scratching thing about this team is, Paulie and I have been talking about it, and for the first half of the season, we thought maybe this team's a pretty good defensive team, and then lately they gave up 60% shooting to BC and 80 points, and 60+% shooting to Wake and 99 points, and now 60% shooting to Clemson, and they lose that one. What is going on the defensive end, Coach?
Well, I think first of all they're so small that they can't compete rebounding wise and really physically. So teams I think are just going right inside and getting easy baskets against Syracuse. If they miss, they're tipping it back out and getting another opportunity. And I think that the lack of depth has really hurt Syracuse. They were pushing and they were doing so. They're still turning teams over pretty well. I think they're doing a good job with that. But in general, I mean, they just, from a physical standpoint, are having a terrible time. I mean, that number, I think Paulie came up with before, too, was that 3 of their last 4 games, teams have shot over 60% against Syracuse.
Yeah.
And they hadn't done that and hadn't done it, once in like 25 years or something.
2006 was the last time, yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, so, is effort involved? I don't think so. I think it's more, as much as I hate to say this, the talent level is not great. There are mismatches in a lot of different positions. Perfect example is Justin Taylor. And Justin Taylor, they're playing at the 4 spot, and he's giving away 4 or 5 inches almost every game that he plays, and probably 30 pounds. And, I know he's not playing well, and he's kind of been the whipping boy here that everybody's jumping all over him. He's not the only way. You got a little leeway here with the fact that he's really playing out of position the whole time. So, and I think that's part of it. I think that's the issue, and I think there's an issue too with obviously with the offense. I mean, it's hard playing defense. Same thing as Paul, we all know. If the offense, is 3 and out all the time, it's really hard for the defense to excel. And I think that's kind of the same thing that's happening here. Syracuse's offense is so, stop and go and so ragged at times that it really puts so much pressure on the defense to make stops all the time. So I think that's part of it as well. But, they definitely have some issues. They might be getting tired here as the season winds down. This could be possibly it, too.
Coach, how do you explain, you say they turn people over, but then it translates to that they're still shooting 60%. It kind of doesn't make sense that you get 21 turnovers and you're still giving up 60% shooting to a team.
I know. That's the crazy part about it. So, in other words, opposing teams, if they get a shot, they're making them. If they don't get a shot because of turnovers, that's it. But if they run their half-court offense and don't turn the ball over, they're pretty much scoring at will. And, Red Autry has tried to go zone. He's tried to go man-to-man. He's trying to go a little bit of everything. And I think that's based on – some of it is based on who he's playing. Some of it's based on the personnel he's got in the game. But I just think that neither one of the defenses has been anywhere near acceptable at this time of the year. And that's kind of why they're losing all these games and going into a little bit of a spin. And they'll have a rough one tonight, too, with trying to contain these big guys from Carolina.
As you bring up tonight, let's talk about this opponent. We saw them meet, a month ago down in Chapel Hill, and it was a massacre. It was 36-point spread, and Carolina dominated on the glass, did whatever they wanted to do. What impressed you the first time around about this Carolina team? When you saw them up close and personal.
Well, I think they're really experienced. They've been around. Hubert Davis has all of a sudden started to do some really good things with them. They got Baycott, who's one of the best big guys, in the country, and certainly they got Davis, R.J. Davis, who's playing great. The whole scouting report yesterday, when we were up there, was all about Davis, more so than anybody else. How wherever he is, somebody's got to be in his face. Somebody's got to be there so he can put the ball on the floor and try to get some help against them from there. So, they got two elite players. Defensive rebounding machine. So who's ever going to be guarding him, it's probably, going to be, your choices are limited, really. I mean, if you go with Taylor to start with on him, if you want to play Bell on him because he's a little bit bigger, Bell's not really a rebounder and boxing out, and, Copeland is small. So, you don't have much of an advantage in any way at all with that person. And then, Cormac is tough. He gets to everything. And, so the only saving point maybe is a little bit is they're not terribly deep either. They don't use a whole lot of people off the bench. Big kid Washington comes in, and he hurt Syracuse the last time. But I thought that the last game was really one that Syracuse didn't compete at all. Not only did they get crushed, but they didn't compete. And they didn't compete from the opening tip-off. And I thought that was the difference. And I'm sure that, Coach Autry and his staff have been pointing that out, that they really, I could be totally wrong on this, except that it looked like it, they were intimidated to start with. And that really hurt them, got behind early, and they could never come back. Plus the fact Carolina's a good defensive team. It used to be the Carolina you could score off of them, and that this is just an offensive team, and they'll just outscore you. But now they're guarding people, and they took Syracuse out of everything that they were trying to run, forced them into a one-on-one situation, which, a number of teams have kind of done to Syracuse recently. They're a quality team that's a legitimate NCAA champion type squad, and but you play them at home, so you got to hope that you're coming in, you're making shots, and the crowd gets into it a little bit, and more than a little bit, and that Carolina doesn't make a lot of shots, that they're missing shots. But it's really going to come down to the same thing as they did before, rebounding. I mean, they out-rebounded Syracuse by almost 30 rebounds the last time they played. And teams recently have done, not 30, but, 15, 20 almost every game. You can't do that at this level and expect to win. So that's what I'm most concerned about tonight is the backboards.
Yeah, and you mentioned they didn't compete that first time around, and Adrian Autry has said that. He points to two games, right? He points to the Carolina game. He points to the Wake Forest game recently, where he just felt like the team did not compete. So I think from that perspective, we're expecting a better effort tonight. And you just touched on it there. That it's going to come down to rebounding. Do you think Syracuse can make this a game? Do you think with 5 minutes to go, 8 minutes to go, that the outcome is still hanging in the balance?
That's a good question, Steve. If you go man to man, one against the other, and you match up on them, it doesn't look like you can. But you know what? When you're at home, and if you make some shots early, I think that's the key. You got to get off early. I mean, you're right. If they were in the game with 4 or 5 minutes to go, then you have a legitimate chance. But you better be able to get off early because you get back down 15 or 14 after the first 10 minutes of the game, you're probably not going to come back. I mean, I know they've done that against some teams, but they haven't done it against a team like Carolina. And
right.
So I think that's the whole key. I really do. I think they need to get some baskets early, get some confidence, run their offense, try to get they've got to set some screens and cuts and movement, and they got to be able to do those things. They can't just stand outside and pound it. And I think that's going to be the key here, another key in this game tonight. Can they get off early and give themselves some confidence as much as anything else, and give people in the stands confidence? Because I'm sure that most people walking in tonight are thinking, oh boy, they killed us before, so But, this is a different story playing at home, too. So hedging my bet here a little bit, Steve. But I think they'll play hard, and I think they'll come after him. It's just whether or not they have enough bodies to really compete with them.
Yeah, fair point. All right, 7 o'clock tip tonight. We'll be listening. We're looking forward to it. Thanks for coming on such short notice. We appreciate it. We'll see you tonight.
No problem, guys. We'll talk to you later.
All right, Jim Satalin joining us here on the show. What's that?
It's my job. I have to listen.
And you have to see him, too.
Yes.
It was nice of him to jump in at the last second and come on with us.
He didn't replace anybody. We just we had nobody else. Is that more insulting than replacing someone?
When you put it like that, it's insulting, but it was not an insult. You were like, who would be good? Like, we haven't had him on yet. Let's have him on tonight.
Exactly.
You'll have to explain that to him in person.
I'll say that you worded that perfectly.
Don't say we had no one else. You didn't replace anyone. We just had no one else. Don't say that. All right? 315-437-7644. Phone lines open the rest of the way. We'll hit a timeout here. We're back after this on ESPN Radio.